Hey everyone, my name is McKenna, also known as Silphic Studios, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today I'm back with a super exciting video because I am back with another custom doll, of course. And this one is actually the last doll that I completed from my last batch of 5 commissions, so I did complete her around 2 months ago now. So I am super excited to finally be able to show you guys her because I've had her complete for so long. So without further ado, let me go ahead and tell you guys who we'll be making, so drumroll please. We'll be making AHSOKA Tano from Star Wars. And guys, I actually have to confess something to you. I've actually never seen a single Star Wars movie in my entire life. So I honestly know nothing about Star Wars. I really need to change that and watch those movies at some point soon. But anyway, like I said, we'll be making AHSOKA, and I think that she's from like the newer series of Star Wars. I could be wrong, again, don't kill me. And I already knew going into this that she would be challenging to make, but I kind of underestimated how challenging she would be. You'll see in a little bit how much I was struggling with sculpting her headpiece. But anyway, that's enough yapping, let's get into the customizing, starting with prepping. So for AHSOKA's base doll, I chose G3 Twyla. I love working on Twyla because she's one of the few G3 dolls that has just like a standard body, like as close to standard as you can get. She is a little bit on the petite side, but as a super short girl myself, I love that, so I don't mind. So of course, to start things off, I'm just taking my super tiny scissors and chopping off all of her hair at the root. And I always start like at the hairline near the front. Once I chopped off her hair, it's beheading time, so I went ahead and boiled up some water off camera, and I'm just letting her soak in it for a couple of minutes. And now I'm just viciously pulling her head off. And I always make sure to cover my hand with a towel because the doll will be super hot and you don't want to burn yourself. But once her head was removed, it's time to remove all of that hair from the inside, so I'm just taking my super long nose pliers and just scraping everything out. You can also use a flathead screwdriver for this, or basically anything that's like long that you can scrape the inside of the head with. So I'm just going and removing everything like I would any other doll. Once all of the plugs are visibly out from all the holes, now I'm just going in and manually pulling out every single plug from the inside of her head. And if you customize dolls, you know how much of a pain this is, like this takes forever sometimes. After I emptied her head, it was time to move on to the super difficult part, which was the sculpting. So prior to this doll, I've done some sculpting before, but nothing nearly as like daunting as this because her entire head basically is sculpted. So I was honestly kind of like winging it here. I didn't really know what I was doing, but basically I just took this like thicker gauge wire and kind of made a skeleton for her little horn things. Again, I haven't seen Star Wars, I don't know what this is. Please don't kill me. But I basically made a skeleton out of wire and then covered the skeleton with foil, and then I glued that foil to her head to make sure that it was like a nice structure. And then once that was all built up and I was happy with that, then I went in with my epoxy sculpt and started sculpting everything out. And if I were to do this again, I definitely would have used like a different type of clay that was lighter. I'm not sure what type of clay I would have used because the epoxy ended up being a little bit like weighty and her head's kind of top heavy. But you know what, you learn through experience, and now I know that if I'm ever going to do a super sculpted head like this, I should probably use a different type of clay. And I had initially tried to make like little skeletons for her, like, I don't know what to call them, they're not tentacles, but like the parts of her headdress that go down, you know what I'm talking about? I tried making skeletons out of wire and foil for that too, but it just wasn't working, like the wire wasn't wanting to stick down properly, so I had to just make those entirely out of clay, so that's another reason why she ended up being kind of heavy. But even now, I still can't think of another way to have done this. So if you guys can think of another, like, easier way to have sculpted her headdress or done it somehow, please let me know. Because this was definitely a lot. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work and a lot of, like, trial and error. Because, like I said, I haven't done a huge sculpting project like this before. So yeah, if you have any tips, let a girl know. Oh yeah, and I was also initially doing this on my headstand, and then I realized that like the epoxy might, pop off of her head if I try reattaching her head, so I reattached it real quick, and then I continued to sculpt while it was on top of her body. And as you can see, there was a big jump in my progress because sculpting the things that I'm sanding right now, I don't know what they're called. They were super difficult to sculpt, and I was trying my best to like get them to lay above her chest and her shoulders so she could still have some sort of like chest head mobility, but that just wasn't happening. That wasn't possible. So unfortunately, she cannot move her head, but she can kind of move her like chest joint and she can move her shoulders, which is good. Trying to sculpt it in a way where she had like the most mobility was like my top priority because she is a doll, but since I'm sculpting a huge headpiece, there's only so much I can do. But despite all my challenges with it, I honestly think it turned out really good. After I sanded it in this clip, I did want her to have more volume on the sides of her head, so I did go in and add more clay to the sides, which you'll see in a second right here. And this is after I sanded the new clay on top of it, and it just looks way better. I am super proud of how it came out, to be honest. So now that all of that sculpting is finally done, it's time to move on to removing her face paint. And honestly, I probably should have done this before I sculpted everything, but I'm a pain in the butt and I like to kind of see what the original doll face up would have looked like with new hair or like the sculpt or whatever. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm weird. So realistically, I probably should have done this like way beforehand, but you know what? It's okay. Now I got to see what Twyla would look like if she had AHSOKA's headdress on. Oh, and you can also kind of see how dirty she got while I was sculpting it. Like you can see all of like the, I don't know, the grayness on her face. It's getting washed away by the acetone. I like didn't realize how gray she got through the process. Once everything was removed, this is what she was looking like. So now it's time to move on to the next step, which is her body repaint. So if you've watched some of my other recent videos, you would know that I've been using a white spray primer for my body repaints recently. And this was actually one of the last dolls that I did before I got that primer, so I am manually painting her white. Looking back, I would have saved so much time if I had just had my spray sealant to spray this entire doll, because I did so many coats of white to even out her headdress and her body and everything, especially her headdress. So that white primer literally would have saved my life at this point, but you know what? It's okay. Painting the layers of white was still pretty fun anyway. And if you're wondering why I'm painting her white, it's just to even out like the skin tone underneath, because Twyla is purple and I'm turning her orange. So I like to paint a layer of white under my doll's skin tone to kind of even out the undertones, or you can do like the opposite, like contrasting color to like even it out too, if you know color theory. But yeah, this is me just painting her orange manually with my paintbrush, and I was trying my best to go around her like headdress as best as I could, because her headdress is mostly white and covering up any color with white is such a pain in the butt. So I was trying to be as careful as I could here. But this is her after one layer of the orange. It's looking pretty patchy. So I went ahead and finished off all the other layers off camera, and I'm just sealing all the body paint with Mod Podge. And if I use paint or Mod Podge at all with my dolls, 99% of the time I water it down. So this Mod Podge is watered down, and the body repaint paint was also watered down. This is her body repaint completely done. Her face did look a little bit patchy here, so I did go in and do more coats of paint after this. But now let's move on to her headdress details. Man, I thought that sculpting this headdress was hard, but whenever I actually got to this part where I was doing all of these super even symmetrical stripes, this was so much harder. Like, I had so much fun doing this, but just having to get symmetrical stripes on both sides of like something you sculpted that isn't perfectly symmetrical is so difficult. And to make things like worse while I was doing this too, I was initially sketching everything out with the blue colored pencil to make it easier, and while I was doing it, the blue was like smearing all over the white and all over the place, so by the time I was done, I had to go and repaint and touch up the white in so many areas. It was a whole experience. But this is it, like halfway done. I outlined it all in colored pencil and filled it in with my colored pencils, and then I went in and painted it, which is what I'm doing now. And I just painted over everything with like a navy dark blue color. This is it after like one coat. It doesn't look like too much, but this is it after all of the coats, and it looks so much better. I'm sealing it here with watered down Mod Podge, by the way, but yeah, I think that this headdress came out so good. I'm honestly super proud of it. It took me such a long time. But now with the headdress done, let's move on to the next part, which is her face up. So to capture AHSOKA's likeness, I was referencing a lot of different pictures of her from like the animated show. My commissioner specifically asked for like the animated version of her and not the live action, so this is the version of her we're making. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. But yeah, I basically just pulled up a lot of different pictures of her and tried to get her likeness down as close as I could, while also working with Twyla's sculpt, because her eyes are pretty defined sometimes. Not sometimes. I find that her eyes are pretty defined. And for like all the white parts on her face, like her eyebrows and her like detailing, I did use a white colored pencil just so I wouldn't have to fight with covering up like dark gray later if I used my regular mechanical pencil. This is the finished sketch that I did for her face. So after this, I sprayed her outside with Mr. Super Clear, and now we're on to layer number 2, which is like building up the actual color. And since AHSOKA doesn't really wear like any heavy makeup or anything, I wanted to make sure that I still defined her crease. So I'm just going in with some like darker orangey brown colors and defining her crease and underneath her eyes. And if you watch my other content, you would know that my big fat head is always covering the frame whenever I'm doing my super detail work, like outlining the eyes and everything. So unfortunately, I don't have that footage. I'm so sorry. As always, I say that in every freaking video. but from the clips I was able to salvage, this is me like doing the detail work, like the whites in her eyes. And then I'm going over all of the like white parts of her face, like the eyebrows, the things on her forehead, and these things on her cheek that I'm filling in right now. I don't know what they're called, I'm sorry. Star Wars fans, don't come after me. But I just went over all the white colored pencil with white paint to make it more opaque. And now I'm just adding the final details to her eyes. I like to add a ton of different like lines and shadows and all that. And this was her face all complete. I'm honestly in love with this face up. So with her face up done, it's time to move on to the final part, which is her outfit. So unfortunately, I barely have any footage of me making this outfit because this was a trial and error process for me. Not like every piece, more so just her dress, because as you can probably guess from her headdress, I can't give her a normal dress that goes on her. I had to kind of glue the dress on her, like around her headdress, so it made it way more difficult. So that's like the main part of the footage I don't have is her dress, but this is me making her leggings right now. So basically I just found this dark gray fabric at the thrift store and I cut it into legging pattern pieces, and now I am cutting all of the little side holes that she has on the side of her leggings into the fabric. And then I just took those two legging pieces, sewed them up the sides, and then I sewed them like together at the crotch by hand. After everything was sewn together, I made sure to press the seams, and these were the finished pants. And like I said before, I don't have a lot of footage of me making the dress, so I guess I'll kind of just explain it a little bit. So I just cut out my pieces like normal, and I sewed the dress up like normal, but the difference comes in whenever I actually had to put it on her. So I basically just sewed everything up like normal and then just fitted it to her body and then glued everything like around her headdress and then sewed it up the back. I also added all of her accessories, her arm bracers, and her little mini lightsabers as well off camera. Those were just too tedious for me to want to record, I'm sorry guys. And then finally for her shoes, I just altered and painted the pair of Monster Fest Draculaura like cowboy boots. So with her shoes and clothing all complete, I think she's done and finally ready for her reveal. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this week's YouTube video. And of course, a huge thank you over to Denton for commissioning me to make her for you. Although I did have quite a bit of challenge while making her, I did have so much fun and I learned a lot of new techniques. So I'm super excited to apply my newfound sculpting skills to my new dolls in the future. And speaking of new dolls, I'm not sure if I'll have a new custom out next week because I am finally through like all of the dolls that I've been working on the last couple months. So I'm not sure if I'll have my Juno doll done by the time my posting time comes around next week. So if she's not, I'll probably post the next part to my Custom Doll 101 series, which is the body repaint portion. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'll just have to see and let you guys know. But besides that, I also had another kind of big announcement to let you guys know about. So I decided on an official date to reopen my commissions, which will be November 14th, which is in about 3 weeks from now from posting this video. And my submission form will be open from the 14th of November through the 16th at midnight, so you have like the whole weekend to get your submission in. And this time around, I'll only be taking 3 slots. The last couple times I've opened commissions, I've said I'll be doing 3, and then I end up taking more than that. But this time, just to keep myself from getting overwhelmed, I will just be doing 3. That didn't make sense. I will just be doing 3. So yeah, if you are interested in commissioning me for a doll, I will have all my information and pricing on my website listed below in the description. So yeah, make sure you guys go check that out if you guys are interested. And oh, one more thing before I get into my Patreon spiel. So for those of you that have been following me for like over a year now, you guys probably remember these restyles on screen here. These are some dolls that I worked on a pretty long time ago that I've been wanting to keep and do something with, but I just haven't had the chance to. So initially I was going to design them all these cool outfits and make them and then sell them to you guys as they were, but I just figured that if I wanted to make them all these elaborate outfits, I wanted to be happy with their faces as best as I can, and since their faces are pretty old and like dated to my style standards, I want to redo them in a way. So I'll be making all those new designs in full new dolls with full new faces and everything, and I'll be putting those up for sale whenever those are made. But for now, I decided that I'm going to be listing all 3 of these old restyles on my shop as they are, because honestly, even though I'm not the happiest with their faces anymore, I still really like them and I don't want to completely wipe them. So I figured I'd just put them on the shop for you guys to enjoy if you guys would like. As of posting this, some of them may not be in stock anymore, or they might still be there, I'm not sure. Just go and check the website. But yeah, TLDR, I have 3 old repaints and restyles up on my shop right now if you guys are interested. But I think that's it for all of my announcements. That was kind of a lot of talking. If you're still listening to this, I love you. I don't know how you're still listening to this, but thank you. So if you guys would like early access to YouTube videos just like this one, early access to my future shop dolls before they're launched on my shop, and other benefits, I highly recommend checking me out on my Patreon. I'll make sure that I link it below for you guys. So of course, a huge thank you over to my patrons over there. Pumpkin Tushy, Morgan, Samuel, Daisy, Lisa, Kiara White Coconuts, Titus Seraph, Arturo Ayala, Ali Neal, Brooklyn Butchie, Aneka Kulo, Erel, Debrisha Pittman, Abigail Spring, Artsy Edits, Lily Carlino, Jessica Ubita, and Barry L. Thank you guys so much for supporting me on my Patreon. And a huge thank you over to Barry L for subscribing to my Patreon in the last week or so since I posted. Big W's in the chat for Barry L. But with that being said, again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys are having a good morning, night, evening, or whatever it is wherever you are. And I'll see you guys in next week's video.